absolutely. It was a pleasure to join you both.
Great. So thank you for accepting our invitation and welcome to the show.
Pleasure.
So we of course, are very sympathetic towards your amendment, your proposed amendment to the forthcoming bill about getting the hereditaries out of the Lords. And of course, your amendment is to get the bishops out. And we think that's much more important. So,
indeed. Sorry to talk over you, but I mean, it does seem to be odd that they're sort of trying to get rid of one anomaly, but not getting rid of another anomaly at the same time.
Yes,
absolutely.
We think it's a good move because, if anything, the bishops are more damaging to democracy because they have a coherent mission, whereas the heredities don't. The mixed bag without a policy or strategy between them.
Well, this is where I think it is just simply wrong that you have a clerical bloc within a legislature. And you know, I would never, and you may disagree with this, but I wouldn't argue that people. That there shouldn't be faith discussed within Parliament, either in the upper house or the lower house. But I do think faith is represented in politics without the need to have a statutory block of people who come from a specific religious denomination.
Yes.
And it just seems to me something of very much, as has been pointed out as one of the justifications by the bishops, it's been there since the Reformation. Well,
yes.
Lots of things have been, lots of bad things were happening around the Reformation as well. It doesn't mean to say that we should necessarily carry them on into today's modern world.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's bad company we keep when the only other country that has clerics in their government as of right is Iran.
Well, this is it, and this is one of the arguments that I've made, and it's one of the slightly disappointing things that we've seen in terms of response from bishops and the government. It's not actually to try and make the argument as to why having a block of 26 bishops permanently in Parliament is right. It's actually, they all come to procedural arguments. They're like, well, the legislation is we want to keep it tight and everything else like that. Well, the government, both the current government and others have talked about the need to slim down Parliament. So why not use this as an opportunity, frankly, to get rid of something that is wrong, that you see in many countries that have faith as a strong part of it, whether it is Italy or France or Germany. There isn't the need to have a stipulated number of clerics. The legislature. It is an insanity that we seem to have lumbered ourselves with, and it's no longer reflective of the country that we live in today.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, the Church of England is very much a minority these days. I think the practicing members are a tiny percentage of the population.
Well, you've got 2% of the UK population regularly attending Anglican Church. And that doesn't mean to say that there will be many members of Parliament, members of the House of Lords, who will have a very deep faith, which is reflected in how they vote and the debates and the questions that they do. And that is perfectly fine. But you don't need that to be reinforced with this clerical block. And sadly, and it's an awful thing to say, that they're not always that attentive in terms of doing the legislative duty. So you've got something in the region of 46% of the time, people taking part in divisions on average in the upper house, bishops taking 6% of the time. So it's not as if they're even, they want the right to stay there, but they aren't actually earning the right in terms of actually contributing. And when they do contribute, obviously they sort of do. I simply ask a question as to who they're contributing on behalf of.
Yeah.
And you know, when they're representing, you know, 2% of the population are attending Anglican Church, it doesn't seem right. Nor is it right that the fact that, you know, it's only bishops from England, so it's hardly reflective of the whole country. So,
Exactly. Yes.
so whichever way you look at it, it's just simply wrong.
Yes, that's right. And I mean, are you motivated by secular principles here, Sir Gavin, or is it simply the arguments that you've been rehearsing just now? Because
Well,
I mean, you know, we would support secular reform generally.
I probably, there would probably be areas that we'd sort of disagree on in terms of so, you know, for example, I would always defend the right for churches to be you know, sort of faith to be involved in schools, for example. And Guy, I'd imagine you would argue probably the other way on that. But I don't.
Maybe not John.
Sorry, John. We're probably all going to have three different positions here. I'm not sure, but it'll make it more interesting and engaging, unless as against violent agreement.
Yeah, I would say that I would like all faiths to be taught in school.
No, that's a different matter. I agree with that, John. Namely, that you know, children should be equipped to understand the faith and non-faith environment in which they are going to grow up in. I think that's essential, but I don't think faith should be involved in running schools.
No, we've seen what happens.
We agree on that one. Yeah,
we've seen what happens in Northern Ireland when that goes.
But I feel very strongly that actually you shouldn't have churches having a right to have a say over legislation. I think they have a right. They have a right to inform public debate. They have a right to be engaged in the conversation. But I don't think that they should have a right to be able to vote and decide on what laws are. And I think I feel that very, very, very strongly. So I'm not sure if I would probably qualify for Atheism UK sort of membership here, as I'm probably slightly off the field on certain areas, but I just think it's wrong on something that's so important, which is our democracy, that actually a single church has that right and has that sort of, you know, and I feel that many other faiths will feel that that's wrong. It isn't reflective, but also so many people who have no faith at all will also feel that it's wrong that a church body has this legislative power and legislative influence.
So what do you feel about parliamentary sittings being opened with prayers and that is involving an opportunity to have a good seat?
Yeah,
I was, and I should apologise to both of you because I was a few minutes late, because I'd been literally in the House of Commons asking questions, justice questions, and of course took part in prayers beforehand. I personally, I don't have an issue with that because I don't think it impacts in terms of a functioning of democracy or legislation whatsoever, and people who are uncomfortable with it don't have to sort of take part in it. But what I do have an issue with is the fact that clerics can actually vote on the way that our lives are conducted. I'm quite happy for them to influence it from the pulpit, but I don't think that they have a right to vote on how people should lead their lives.
Good point. Well, so it probably won't be propitious for me to offer you the opportunity to become one of AUK's advisors then?
Well, I would always be delighted. I'm sure we'd agree on 90% of things, and I do think it's but you know, there should always be a space to have sort of debate. But I would always be delighted to contribute, and I would never be offended if you didn't agree with me, as I hope you wouldn't be offended if I didn't agree with you all the time.
Yes, that's fine.
Of course, we don't have complete agreement, as you've just heard.
But what I do think is really important, there's some significant issues in terms of actually how sometimes the state is run, and this is an opportunity, and legislative time is incredibly precious. You don't often get the opportunity to do anything like this. Do you know the last time that this was discussed? It was 1999. We've gone quarter of a century since we actually last discussed this.
Right.
And even if we look at 1999, the country was a very different place in 1999 as it is today. And I think this debate is long overdue.
Yes,
and actually, what I would hope to do, I'd hope the government, who I think would actually, there's a lot of people who are from right across the House that are deeply sympathetic to this view and think it is quite simply wrong that this is being allowed to carry on, would actually be very sympathetic to this view. And I would hope that, I would quite happy for the government to take this amendment and make it their own. And actually, I think legislation would be better and stronger as a result of it. And I actually think the House of Lords would seem more robust, because when I bring constituents in and I show them around, and it's a beautiful building, Parliament, and the House of Lords is magnificent. And when I tell them this is the Bishop's Bench, they're like, what do you mean, the Bishop's Bench? They can't understand that, in today's modern age, this block, they even have their own seating arrangement. And actually, I think by removing it, it strengthens the House of Lords, because it doesn't seem quite so of a different age. It speaks a bit more to the nation, and of course, it's predominantly white. It's overwhelming, predominantly male. It is only from England.
And there's only one church, a minority church, when there are many others. Although therein lies a danger that other people might say, "Oh well, in that case, we'll have some imams and rabbis in as well."
Well, Guy, we're going to be in violent agreement here, because I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be trying to create a widened religious sort of selection, because I think if you're an imam, if you are a vicar, if you're a priest, whatever, you have the right to have your say in Parliament, and by being elected as a member of Parliament. And you can get that mandate, and you can represent the people, and you can represent your views and your values and your faith in that. But I think.
You go on. Of course. Well, I was going to ask you whether you've had much support from Humanists UK.
Well, I'm really appreciative of all those who are, humanists, from right across the country who've voiced their support. And I've not only had support from humanists, I've also had support from Anglican vicars as well. And actually, on a recent survey, 60% of Anglican vicars didn't think it was right that bishops, the current arrangement was the case. So this isn't just about. This isn't just about Humanist UK or different people who take this view from a humanist perspective, but actually people who do have a faith but don't think it's right. And I think that actually is a very powerful point there, because this isn't a minority view. This is actually very much a majority view for people with who have a faith and those who don't have a faith, but just don't feel it's right.
Yes.
Well, I hope that your amendment is adopted and the bill becomes act. But do you think that this getting rid of the bishops might be the thin end of a wedge that ends in disestablishment?
I think they're sort of quite two different things. But what I I'm quite confident is that what I'm quite confident about is that I hope that we win. If we get the chance to have a vote on this, I hope that we win the vote. But if we don't win the vote, I think it signals the end to bishops taking the role as legislators, because in the future, whether that is 5 years or 10 years' time, it's becoming more and more apparent that their position as part of a legislative body is completely unsustainable. And maybe, John, I'm just too unambitious, but I kind of sort of think to myself, I think, let's focus on this task. It isn't something that should be allowed to happen. I appreciate it is a long battle, but if we can do this, I actually think we make the state, our institutions of governance much stronger by doing so.
Yes, more representative. Yes, indeed. So, do I take it then that you nearly accepted my invitation to become an advisor? So I'd be delighted.
I'd be delighted to, John. I will. I'm not sure if I will always have as many pearls of wisdom as, but I can offer you whatever I have.
We have free speech, indeed. Yes. So can I publish that? Can I publish that on our website?
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Do you know about the All-Party Parliamentary Humanist Group?
I do.
Yeah. Are you presumably not a member of that? Are you?
I'm not a member. It's the start of a sort of a new parliamentary term, and sort of been throwing ourselves into so many different things. But I will make sure, Guy, that I get signed up to it. And the thing I would actually, the thing I would also encourage, members from across the country, is to contact their member of parliament, because there is nothing more powerful as a member of parliament to hearing from constituents who are basically saying, this matters to me.
Yes.
Because if they don't think it matters to their constituents, they'll happily march through their voting lobbies as their whips have instructed them to. They need a little bit of steel in their spine to encourage them to actually not vote for their careers, but actually sort of vote for what they maybe believe in. And you may think that's odd coming from a former chief whip, but to me, this is an issue of conscience. This isn't about party management. This isn't about the government's agenda. This isn't going to derail what the Labour government wants or anything else like that. But what it is about something that you feel inside. And is it right that a church that only actually is now a sort of a minority church has this voting block?
Yes.
I think most people, when they ask the question, come up with the same answer as me, and it is no, it is not right.
Yes, that's absolutely right, and I think that there is a majority of support in the public. The question is whether there's parliamentary majority, isn't it?
Yes,
it is.
Definitely not representative. But are you aware that we are co-sponsoring an event in the Royal Geographic Society's building, next door to Albert Hall?
Yes.
On December the 14th, starring Stephen Fry, Richard Dawkins, Lawrence Krauss, and Douglas Murray?
I wasn't aware of that, but it certainly sounds a cracking, an amazing event, which and with a sort of a truly powerful celebrity-driven cast there. So it's some very big hitters.
We're calling it Hitchmas. Hitchmas in commemoration of the death of Christopher Hitchens.
Yes.
And I don't know, would you like to have a ticket?
I would love to. I mean, if I could come along, I'd be delighted to do so.
December the 14th at 7:00.
Saturday, isn't it?
I will probably be. usually, because I don't live in London, so I'm usually I'm usually sort of doing constituency work on the weekend and back home with my family. But let me double check, and I'll come back to you if that's okay,
Yes.
John. If I could, I would love to, but I have a feeling at that close to Christmas on a Saturday, I'm usually back to back doing constituency events. So it's
let me know. And at the moment, I can't promise you a ticket because they are selling very, very fast.
Well, I will certainly let you know. Definitely,
Great.
John.
If you're interested, I'll see what I can do.
That's brilliant.
Great stuff.
Gavin, that was well. Thank you very much.
It was an absolute pleasure and lovely to speak to both of you. And
Very nice to meet you.
I will give it my all. I'm afraid to say I can't promise you success will definitely follow. But what I will do is I'll do everything I can do to make sure that actually we flag up the fact that something wrong is there, and do my absolute best to see if there's a way of making sure we put it right.
Quite right too. Anachronisms have to end sometime, and now's the time.
Well, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right then.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.